Good morning. It's Tuesday, October 4th. This morning, I was reading last chapter in Acts, chapter 28. I finished up Acts, and then first two chapters of Romans 1 and 2. And the verse I wanted to share on was Romans 1, 19 and 20. Romans 1, 19 and 20. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and his divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made. So they are without excuse. Here's Paul's talking about in the first chapter. He's talking about people who just say there's no God. People who refuse to worship God or search for a God or seek a God. Who just say, well, there's no God. And Paul's telling us here that we don't really have the responsibility. We're wasting our time when we debate them or try to convince them there's a God. Because Paul says, for what can be known about God, it's plain to them. God's already shown them. God's already made it plain to them. We don't need to do that. God's already done that to every single man and woman alive. Because God has shown it to them. What's known about God is plain to them. Why? Because God has shown it to them. There's no way in the world that if God has shown somebody something and they want to argue with him, they want to disbelieve him, they think they know more than him, why would I spend my time trying to convince them when God has already proven himself, his existence to them? For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, he's shown them his invisible attributes. Those things that they can't see are shown in nature. That he can make anything, that he created all things. Trying to convince somebody that there's a God that made the world is like trying to convince somebody that somebody made my Nissan pickup. If they look at my pickup and they go, oh, this just happened. It just evolved. It came about in some sort of explosion of a metal plant. And after the explosion, this truck was just here. Anybody can look and see there's a design to it. Somebody created it. If somebody came up and said, Thom, this didn't have a designer. The truck wasn't designed by somebody. It wasn't created by somebody. It just always was. It just happened somehow. I'd realize, wow, they're foolish. Why waste my time? By living on this planet, by being alive on this planet, God says, I have already spoken to them. I've already shown them who I am, that I'm here. They need to seek me, and I'll reveal myself to them. That's not our job. So his divine nature have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world and the things that have been made. So God says, so they are without excuse. Our responsibility is to continue to seek him, to continue to spend time with him, to allow him to bear the fruit of the Holy Spirit in our lives, to allow God to conform us into the image of Jesus, to finish that work in our lives. to be obedient to him, to love him. And because, as he changes us and conforms us into his image, he opens the doors for us to have conversations with people so we can share the gospel with them. We don't have to prove to them that God lives, that he created. We just tell them about the God who created it. And they can see it in our lives if we walk in the Spirit, if we have the fruit of the Holy Spirit. If we allow God to change us, then we become the living proof that the God we're talking about is the real God. And the Holy Spirit does work. He speaks to them as we speak. He uses his words coming through our mouth. And that's the job of the Holy Spirit. Our job is to simply get to know him, seek him, allow him to change us, and to share the good news that Jesus Christ died for the sins of the world. And by trusting him, they can have a relationship with God. That's my prayer, that we'll just we'll seek God. We'll get to know him. We'll spend time with him. We'll be obedient to what he shows us and to his words. And he'll use our lives to touch those that are seeking him. Thanks for listening today.